Omagyanativarandasya Niranjana Swami Chakshur-Amrinitam Tasmai Shri-Gurave Namaha Ukam Karoti Vachulam Bhavamam Gayatri Jari Yakripa Tamaham Vande Shri-Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinarama Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Vishesha Sanyavadi Pasachari Satarani Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaurabhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, I don't have a seminar. In fact, I think this is the only slot I'm going to be speaking. Tomorrow I get class in the morning and then I have to wait till the next morning. So, I haven't prepared anything. And quite frankly, although I attend a lot of these events, festivals, Bhakti Sangam Festival, Sadhu Sangam Festival, Baltic Sangam Festival. I've never given a seminar before, so I usually just talk about something. So I'm going to follow the tradition. And I usually just pick a topic which I think might be relevant and share a few thoughts on the topic with the devotees. And don't get me wrong, it's not like I have anything at all against seminars. They're so valuable, especially when they're well prepared. But I usually have so many other things to think about that to take the time to prepare for a seminar for me is a unique occurrence in my life to have the time to prepare something. I was going to also forgive me, I'm not used to speaking in straight English. This is the first time I've done it, I think, since the beginning of the year. So usually I'm always speaking with a translator next to me, and I speak in segments. You know. And I think this is the first talk probably in months that I'm speaking straight English. And sometimes I get what's called, I call it mental constipation, because I'm so used to thinking in between while my translator translates.
Do you want us to get you a translator?
No, that's okay. Sometimes I ask devotees if they'll just sit and repeat what I say. But no, it's okay. I think I'll go right. But it'll take me a few minutes to get into it. This is the first talk. Maybe since my I want to speak of the fact that Bhakti Chaitanya Swami and I just spent 20 days studying Russian together. So I've started to think in Russian. And now I have to come back to English. Anyways, topic. I'm going to begin because I always like beginning by reading from something. And I'm going to read from something, and then I'm going to explain why I read from this, and then we'll continue on this morning's topic because I felt I do have to explain, make it properly understood that father of Bhakti Sangam is not really an appropriate way to present me. And I know what maybe Devaki's intentions were good, and I don't in any way dismiss her intentions. But I think it'd be helpful to everybody to understand how did a festival where 12,000 people come and nobody is charged for festival fees and nobody is charged for prasadam fees, and how did it happen? It might be an interesting topic to explore. And because I don't think it's impossible to replicate, I don't think it's impossible, meaning it is possible to replicate in other places. And in fact, I think you have a foundation here, it's quite possible. Circumstances may be a little bit different, and I can cover those points, but I think it'd be helpful to share at least my observations, because for the most part, my role is just observing. I try to give a few guidelines, encouragement, and then I just observe how things take place. I mean, I started even from the very first days when I first started going to the Soviet Union, former Soviet Union, maybe almost 28 years ago now. I gave the example, that when I went there first time, for my first visit, and I sat and I saw so many devotees very eager to hear about Krishna consciousness. And after several visits at that time, which was still, during KGB times, but still, several visits at that time, my realization is that if people are very eager to hear, that in itself is what really encourages the speaker to speak, based on people's enthusiasm to hear it. Of course, Muni Yasara Krishna Hambhava Bihaloka Mangalam, as it says in the Bhagavatam, the sages of Naimisharanya wanted to hear everything as long as it's connected to Krishna. So that's another qualification, if people are very eager to hear something that's connected to Krishna. And in fact, Sutta Goswami says, "Oh, sages, I've been justly questioned for you. Your questions are glorious because they relate to Lord Krishna, and therefore they're of relevance to the welfare of the whole world." So when I first started visiting, I saw people were very eager to hear, and I used to explain to people, what they used to ask me, "What's it like?" And I used to tell them that for me it was like that these people were so sincere, so desirous of hearing, that Krishna was reciprocating with their desires, and I was caught in the crossfire. I was just caught in the crossfire. I happened to be there. That's all. My only qualification, I was there, and I could observe. I was able to bear witness of people very eager to hear about Krishna, and somehow Krishna was reciprocating it. I happened to be in the seat. I was somehow given the opportunity to observe. I could say in many respects that the evolution of this festival, this Bhakti Sangam festival, involved by the sincere desires of many devotees to serve. And it didn't take much on my part to initiate it, a few fine-tunings, but I can tell you what I've observed over the last, when did we first have the festival? Well, over the last 20, I think the first festival might have been 1996, 20 years. And how it evolved into what it is today. Today it's a little bit, as was mentioned this morning, I think it was mentioned this morning. Yeah, somebody mentioned 12,000, now it dropped to 7,000 or whatever it was. Was it you who mentioned it? Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, it dropped significantly because of the war. And we can speak about that too a little bit because it's related. But still, the way it evolved was very wonderful. And because I observed it, I can speak from that platform. And that's how I wish to share it. But before, I wanted to read a quote from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur about festivals. I could speak about the quote, but I'm presenting the quote because, and I'll put it into context after I speak about it. It's from Amrita Vani. The question is it necessary to live with devotees to get their association? And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's statement, which as for those of you who know Amrita Vani, it wasn't the question that was asked to him. The questions were composed based on the text of Amrita Vani. So the author actually composed questions in relationship to the statements by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So he says, certainly association with devotees is essential. However, we attain association according to our own qualification. It is not a fact that simply by living together we can take advantage of good association. And it is true that we can associate with devotees even when we live at a distance from them. Association does not necessarily mean living in the same room. However, living with devotees makes it easier to hear from them, whereas such hearing is more difficult over a distance. We conduct festivals in the temple to give everyone the opportunity to associate with devotees. There's different purposes here. The second one may not be so attractive to the non-devotees. We conduct festivals in the temple to give everyone the opportunity to associate with devotees, to destroy their attachment for material life. People may not want to come to our festivals, it's the purpose behind our festivals, but devotees may like that, hopefully. To display compassion for all living entities, to develop a taste for chanting the holy name, and to engage in the service of Hari, Guru, and the Vaishnavas. The month's main purpose in holding festivals, reciting Srimad Bhagavatam and discussing Hari Katha, is to awaken the soul's constitutional propensity to serve Krishna. If we hear Hari Katha in the association of devotees, we revive awareness of our constitutional position and attain the ultimate goal of life. Quote. So, now, as I said, I could speak on that topic in and of itself, but I want to put this quote into context of the greater talk that I wanted to speak about, and that is the evolution of the Bhakti Sangam festival. And it began, I think it was 1996. Many devotees expressed a desire. It was very difficult for them to go to India for the Korpanim festivals. And the leaders, the local leaders, actually asked me what I thought about having a local festival for devotees, especially for those who couldn't go to Mayapur. And I thought it was a great idea, let's do it. So we started having a festival. We rented a little old, what they call it? I can only think of Domodiha. What's the Domodiha? Resort? Yeah. Little resort. It was, and I think maybe about 200 devotees came. It was organized in a desa, and the local temple organized it, and of course we had to pay to rent, because our temples in the 90s and pretty much throughout Ukraine, they're pretty much the same. They're not really conducive for holding festivals. They're small. We've tried to put more emphasis on Sangam association and less emphasis on temples, and if the temples manifest, let them be organic. Let them manifest as a result of the local devotees' enthusiasm to have their own temples. So that's been pretty much our way of trying to expand in Ukraine. So none of our temples really could accommodate a festival. So we had to rent outside. It was just necessity. So then with that came many expenses. And we did that for a few years, and the number of devotees began increasing. With an increase of number of devotees, the increase of the expenditure increased, and at that time, everybody had to pay a particular fee to cover the cost of the renting the facilities, to cover the cost of the prasadam, to cover the cost of speakers, so that they could come, and to pay for their transportation fees. And it was a pretty hefty expense. And then the local temple that was conducting it, also to motivate the devotees to do all that work, wasn't so easy, so then they had to figure out a way of not only to charge to cover the cost of the event, but then to motivate the devotees. Usually having a little extra income always helped to motivate people to do something. So then the festivals were kind of built on that foundation. And then the catalyst, okay, I don't want to go in and place a value. It was something that needed to be done, and it was done, and the increased devotees started to come. But the catalyst, at least to change the concept behind the festival, came one morning when we were having the festival, and a disciple of mine from America had come to the festival. She heard about it, and I can't remember. The festival was someplace. I think it was outside of Odessa. Participating in the festival were maybe about 1,000 people, 800 to 1,000 people at that time. And the disciple came up to me later in the day. She said, she apologized that she wasn't at Mangalarti. So I said, well, it's okay sometimes. And then she explained the reason why she wasn't at Mangalarti is because she didn't have a wristband. And because she didn't have a wristband, the organizers said, you can't come. And because the festival was just for people who had wristbands. You know, that was the way it was organized. And to get a wristband, you had to pay the festival fees, and especially during the morning, we were at a resort where the water in Odessa, the water was restricted to certain times of the day, and if too many people came in the morning, there wasn't enough water even for everybody to take a shower. So. Therefore, the organizers had to restrict people coming at all times of the day, and even at, it turns out, at Mangalarti. So I said, well, what happened? She said, I forgot it back in the room, but by the time I would get back to the room and get the wristband, Mangalarti was over. So I didn't. And I just, somehow, something in my mind just like snapped. I couldn't figure out, why does somebody have to pay to go to Mangalarti? You know, something is fundamentally wrong here. Something is fundamentally wrong. why does somebody have to pay to go, I went to speak, to go to class? Bhagavatam, I mean, I can understand there may be other events taking place during the day, venues, prasadam, things like that. But it just, something was wrong. So I just, at that point, can't remember what year it was, maybe it was about in the early 2000s. I just said, that's it. We have to do something. We have to have a festival, and where there's no festival fees. And so that we don't have to worry about, people being refused entrance to Mangalarti. Sorry, yeah, it's working, it's okay. But to do that, then you have to think about how to cover all the costs. Anyways, the details are not so important. I'm just giving you the catalyst. This was the catalyst. So basically I sat down with a few devotees and I said, let's think, let's brainstorm. How can we have a festival we don't have to worry about charging people to come for the festival? And then the devotees started to think of different ways of how to do it. And then, to cut expenses and things like that. So the next year, they wanted the different devotees were organizing it. Those who believed in it, decided that they would get together and organize it. And the first thing was just to stop the festival fees, which means because there are different fees. There's accommodation fees, there's prasadam fees, and then there's festival fees. And they're all different according to different categories. But they thought, first let's stop charging festival fees, and then people can pay for prasadam, and you have 800 to 1,000 devotees for 6 days, 5 days. It's a lot of prasadam, and then so they started with that, and they didn't ask the devotees to pay any fees. They just put up a notice: we're having a festival, no festival fees, just prasadam fees, and everybody was welcome to come. There were no wristbands to stop people from coming from Mangalarti and Srimad Bhagavatam class. And then it was for the organizers, it was tough. They were sweating. I mean, really, because people were thinking it's a free festival. And nobody was giving any election. And I said, and I explained to them, I said that we had another meeting, and I said, don't worry, Krishna will provide. And we had another meeting, and I said, I made some point to the devotees that if the devotees see that nobody's interested in making any lakshmi, they're only interested in facilitating devotees to come and to hear about Krishna consciousness. Nobody is getting any personal benefit at all. It may take a couple of years before they begin to catch on to the concept. There may be some losses in the beginning, but don't worry. Krishna will take care of it. And so we sort of continued the festival on that basis. And then there was a big loss. That year, we won't tell you how we covered it, but we covered it. And then we said, let's try it again next year. Next year, same principle, no festival fees, although they did charge for prasadam, and accommodations are always charged for, because usually the only thing we do for accommodations, we just broker. We just arrange for the people who are actually renting the facilities. We say, we'll fill up your your domodica, you'll fill up your resort, and we'll just send people to you. Can you give them a reduced price? And they said, okay, fine, we'll do that. So that's all. That was accommodations. And then the next year we tried it. Still, a lot of people were thinking no festival fees. Nobody wanted to give so much Lakshmi, and the festival organizers were really distressed. How are we going to do this? They're looking to me. And so that's where this quote comes in. Okay. This quote comes in because I gave a talk on the purpose of festivals, and I read this quote from Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And on this festival, I was only one speaker of many speakers who were speaking. Maybe at that particular talk, there may have been about 300 people at the talk. And I emphasized the purpose of the festivals is that when pure Hare Katha is spoken, this association with devotees, these are all the benefits that we get. We become free from our material attachments. We develop a taste for the holy name of the Lord. And I try to explain that if we stick to the principles of being purely motivated to conduct this festival, to serve those who come here to speak. They come here to speak. We're serving them. They're coming to speak. We're not, it may look like we're serving all the devotees and serving them out, but we're servants of those who come to speak Hare Katha, because they want to speak the pure message of Hare Katha. And how can they speak a pure message unless people come and want to hear it? And how can the people stay? Because Association Srila Bhakti Siddhanta says it's much better if they can stay. Yes, they can hear from a distance, but if they can stay close, then the speakers are satisfied, the hearers are satisfied, and all of you get to participate in something which is pure. And I never once mentioned Lakshmi in this talk. I never said, I just said, all of you should think of a way how you can help organize this festival so that the speakers can speak Hare Katha and people can stay and not have to go someplace and hear them. And then at the end of the class, all of a sudden people came up and started throwing Lakshmi on the table. I didn't say anything about Lakshmi. Just throwing it on the table. And then on the next day, more people were approaching me and giving me Lakshmi. And after 3 days, $17,000 in Ukraine. Ukraine. $17,000 was donated by all the devotees who just heard the talk so that we could conduct the festival that year. I never said the festival was in debt. I didn't say anything. I just said, think of how you can help to do the festival. And I told the organizers, because they were sweating, I said, I'm only going to do this once. I'm not going to do it again. Let's just keep continuing. Let's do it this way. And then, sure enough, that year there was no deficit for the festival. And that year, I don't know how many devotees there were. I can't remember. Somewhere maybe between 1,000 and 2,000 devotees. And then they did it again the next year. Then they had to have people register. They decided that because so many people were coming now, that because it's a festival, no fees, that they had no idea how many people to cook for. So we had to have people register so that we knew how many people to cook for. And then at the time of registering, devotees were just encouraged that, that there's no fee, but if you'd like to give something to help cover the cost of the festival, then they told everybody generally about how much it costs per person for the festival. But many people didn't give anything. Some people gave more. And some people began donating for the festival because they liked the idea that the festival, anything that came in for the festival was for the festival, nothing else. And then I started to speak to the speakers who were coming and flying. I said, can you help the devotees out in Ukraine? They want to hear you. Maybe you can come and pay for your own flight. What do you mean pay for my own flight? I'm coming. Well, you know, we're doing this thing, and you know, the devotees in Ukraine don't have so much Lakshmi. Many of them, you know, they save up Lakshmi the whole year to come to the festivals of their life. It's their life. I mean, it's, you know, some of them had to save up their whole savings to come to the festival. And I said, maybe you could help facilitate so that more people could come by not having to charge the devotees for your flight. And then maybe some of the preachers started to catch on. They thought, yeah, it sounds like a good idea. And many of them started to come and pay for their own plane tickets. And they found out that even though they didn't pay for their own plane tickets, they all got their tickets paid for anyways because devotees started giving them donations for coming. In other words, the spontaneous spirit of giving began to manifest. And then the spontaneous spirit of serving began to manifest because, you know, the devotees began to catch up that more people were coming. It started from 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. Every year it always increased by at least 1,000. Every year. At least by 1,000. And, you know, and then after doing that, the organizers came to me and said, how about if we stop charging for prashadam fees too? I said, why don't you try it? So they stopped charging prashadam fees. And then they started to organize the devotees for cooking prashadam. We had different temples, and the way they started to arrange it, the organizers who were doing it were all devotees who were, many of them were not managers. They were all just part of the congregation. They were part of actually the devotee care system. I don't like to call it a system, but many of them were part of the devotee care groups. And they came forward to do service, and their service was how to take part in the festival organization. So they started organizing themselves to conduct the festivals. So different yatras, they came up with an idea that why don't they share the responsibilities of cooking for so many thousands of devotees between different yatras, and every yatra, or a few yatras together, will take responsibility for one day. So then the way they organize it, and I didn't have anything to do with all this. I didn't, I just observed it. I really didn't have anything to do with it. I just made a few recommendations. Let's try it. Let's try it. The devotees became motivated to serve all the Vaishnavas who were coming to speak. And because their katha was so relishable, people were becoming enlivened, and it just kind of dynamically grew into something which came to be known as, you know, the Bhakti Sangam festival. And then the different temples they would take responsibility to cook, to purchase the bhoga, for that particular day, to cook, to serve out, to clean up afterwards, and then the next day another temple would do it, or another group of temples. And that's how the serving of the prasadam began to manifest, that each temple and their groups began taking responsibility for getting the bhoga. And in fact, I like to tell one little story in this connection, actually. devotees attending the festival that year. In 2013, just before the war, there was 12,000. I can't remember what year, but this was maybe about 6 years ago. There were about 8,000 people attending. And I would go around to encourage the devotees who were doing all the cooking. And because the donations that were coming in for the festival were always used for making the festival better, then they began getting different paraphernalia. They cooked outside with these huge pots the size of, maybe from this pillar to that pillar. It was the size of the pot on wood. They have about 12 of them. And the devotees would pick 12 of those huge vats, And they were volunteering their services to do this. And so I went into the kitchen one day to see all the devotees. Devotees were maybe about 150 devotees cutting vegetables. Another devotee was making bread rolls. This devotee actually he makes bread rolls, but he's there every day. He makes 25,000 rolls a day. Every day. And it takes, about 100 devotees to roll the balls and to put them in the ovens and everything like that. And in fact, when I brought Havi Prabhu last year, my brother Havi Prabhu came. He wanted to see the festival. He asked, "Can you show me around?" So I brought him into the kitchen. And there was about maybe 300 devotees in the kitchen cutting vegetables, and they were all having kirtan while they're cutting the vegetables. And there was one devotee sitting at the table cutting vegetables. He had no legs, he was in a wheelchair. And he was cutting vegetables, and he was chanting, real enthusiastically the kirtan. And when Havi Prabhu saw all this, he just broke down crying. Just crying. I can't believe this. How is it possible? These devotees are working so hard, and I just said, they're motivated to serve you, Prabhu. And they're motivated to serve you. And the story I wanted to tell, I was in the kitchen. I walked around to the kitchen, and then I went to the pot room. And the pot room is where they have to clean up all the buckets, the serving containers. And this was maybe 3-4 years ago. Maybe I'd say there's probably about 8,000 devotees there. And there's a lot of buckets. A lot of buckets. And there was one devotee left who was washing all the buckets, and the room was probably maybe 1/3 the size of the temple room. It was just filled with barrels and buckets that the devotees used for serving prasad. And he was there, blissfully washing the pots, working really hard, he had been there all day. It was late at night. And the many devotees were there who had been washing, but he stayed a little bit late to make sure everything was ready for the next group that was coming in the next day. Because I said each day a different group of devotees do it. So I came up to them and I said, "Prabhu," I said, "is everything okay with your service?" And he looked at me and said, "No." "What's the matter?" "They're only going to let me do this one day." Was his answer. And that was after he had been all day washing pots, buckets, and everything like that. I said, "Yeah, I hear there's another group coming in tomorrow." I said, "Well, if you want, we can arrange for you to come in and do it too." But that was his response. And that's kind of like, it's mystical. I can't explain it, but as I said, even sometimes people come and during the registration, they pay for the registration. Yes, they pay to give a donation. A lot of people don't give anything. A lot of people say, "Well, you don't have anything?" There's never any pressure. You don't give. Some people give more. Some people give pretty much what will cover the cost. But it took a leap of faith in the beginning to start to conduct the festival in that particular way. But then the spirit began to grow, and then people come to the festival and they give Lakshmi to attend the festival, but then they spend a good portion of the festival either cooking, cleaning, serving, washing clothes, taking care of the guests, accommodating people, and the prasadam is for all the devotees is so good that Radhanath Maharaj, when he came one year, he refused to eat the prasadam he wanted to eat with the devotees because the prasadam was better. And it's many things I could say, having observed its evolution in the way that I have. Many things of course, there's difficulties, there's tribulations, there's devotees who take advantage, there's complaints. This material world, somebody will always complain. I mean, anybody who knows who's in a position of management, that there's always something that you can complain about. And but until the war came, every year it would always increase by at least 1,000 people, and every year expenses were always covered. And not only that, what the organizers started to do about 5 or 6 years ago, they started to think, let's continue to do the festival instead of the spirit of donating. And they opened up a devotees shop. And because many devotees, I mean, in Ukraine, there are a lot of devotees. I don't know, the last time it was calculated, I think it was somewhere around 15,000. Something like that. I mean, but a lot of them can't afford to buy dhotis, saris, paraphernalia, and they can't go to India. And so the devotee organized said, why don't we go and we buy all the paraphernalia there? Let's set up a shop and let people come and give whatever they can for dhotis and saris and deity paraphernalia, soap, and whatever they can get. Let's follow the same principle. I didn't think of it, the local organizers thought of it. I would have never thought of something like that. I thought if I would have suggested something like that, they would have objected. They thought of it. You know. And this is again why I say I'm not the father of the Bhakti Sangam Festival. These things evolved by the enthusiasm of the devotees to serve the devotees. It's all. It's just evolved by their enthusiasm to serve the devotees. Therefore, then they decided, and they went and they got a whole shipload of dhotis, saris, deity paraphernalia, tilak, things like that. And then they set up the shop, and people come in and they give whatever they can. And devotees were telling stories of some of these older women, that save up all their money their whole lives, they still couldn't buy a sari. They couldn't believe it. The one woman came in, she couldn't believe that she could buy a sari. She was tears in her eyes. You mean I can give you this much for this sari? And he said, yes. And she just sat, cried. Couldn't believe it. Inconceivable for her. She would have a sari, even though she didn't have enough money to pay for it. And they've been doing this every year now too, I think. And then that started, and then kirtans, devotees started to think about having more kirtan. So at night, during the Bhakti Sangama festival, nothing is open, everything shuts down, no other events going on, no stalls, no books being sold, no nothing. And everybody just comes for kirtan. That was the wheat, I think, example which was being used this morning. And all the organizers and the people in the background, they're all there in the kirtan at night. Because there's so many people to do the backup service. The main organizers, every night they're there for kirtan for 4 hours. Every night. How is it possible? I don't know. I can't. I'm just observing. But somehow the spirit of Vaishnava Seva, serving the devotees, especially the devotees who are coming and speaking and giving their Sangha and preaching such wonderful nectarian messages of Krishna consciousness, becomes an impetus to have a festival and to serve the devotees and to facilitate it. Because as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, the whole purpose of festivals is association. And if the association is pure, then it awakens a desire. Recently I found one verse in the Bhagavatam. It's sort of like become like a, for me it's sort of like a, how long am I supposed to speak for?
1:45.
1:45?
Half an hour.
Oh really?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not going over time. This verse in the Bhagavatam, I've been quoting it a lot. 11th canto, 2nd chapter, 12th verse. I can't remember the Sanskrit. It's, I'm pretty sure it's Narada Muni speaking to Vasudeva about devotional service. Vasudeva was inquiring from Narada Muni, specifically about pure devotional service. He wanted to understand how to become freed from fear. And Narada Muni was instructing many relevant verses about how pure devotional service can actually awaken freedom from fear. And there was one quote that pure devotional service rendered to the Supreme Lord is so transcendently potent that simply by hearing about such activities, simply by glorifying it in response, simply by meditating on it, simply by faithfully and respectfully accepting it. In other words, faithfully and accepting that it exists. Simply by praising the service of others. Even a person who hates all the demigods and all living entities in the universe can immediately become purified. I read this verse, I was thinking, this is a really powerful verse. Because I was really thinking, I'm oftentimes thinking, sometimes you think we have to be pure devotees to speak about pure devotion. And sometimes people think, well, who are you to speak about pure devotional service? We're not pure. Or, actually no. To speak about pure devotional service is for the benefit of both the speaker, for the benefit of the hearer, because if we speak about, to speak about all the examples of pure devotional service there are in the Bhagavatam, there's so many wonderful examples of pure devotional service in the Bhagavatam. And if we hear about it, if we glorify it in response to what we heard about it, if we meditate on it, if we faithfully and respectfully accept, it exists. Maybe I don't have it, but it exists. And if I have faith that it exists, then if I hear about it, something will happen. That even whatever envy is in my heart, which makes me think to hate the demigods or to hate all living beings in the universe, you gotta be pretty envious. Hate all living entities. In fact, I oftentimes think of there's a verse in the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam. It's Prahlad Maharaj's prayer to Lord Nrsingadev. He's praying to Lord Nrsingadev, Svasyast, something kalaprasiddhatam. Maybe somebody knows the verse. He's praying to Lord Nrsingadev. He says, may all envious persons become pacified. And may everyone always be thinking about devotional service to you and remembering you. He says, because when people become envious, people become pacified, then they can genuinely think of everyone else's welfare. And Prabhupada, in the word for word, kala, the word kala means envious person. And Prabhupada in the word, look it up, it's 5th canto, 18th chapter, 9th verse, I think it is. Prabhupada says, in word for word, it says, Kala means envious people. And then he puts in parentheses, almost everyone. Almost everyone. So, when you hear a verse about the glories of pure devotional service, and how that even a person who hates all the demigods and all living entities in the universe, you know, you gotta be pretty envious, and, you know, can immediately become purified just by hearing. If we just simply have faith that it does exist, we faithfully and respectfully, he said, accepting that it exists. It does. Why not talk about it? That's what Sadhu Sangha is supposed to be. That's what Harikatha is supposed to be. It's supposed to be hearing pure topics. Topics which are free, rejecting all other sub-religious principles. Hearing topics about pure devotional service. And, you know, sometimes we even think that, you know, like, I've been giving this example also lately, that people think when they hear about the pure devotees in Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, they kind of dismiss it, that it's like these pure devotees that we hear about, you know, it's sort of like a unique, you know, they're pure devotees. To hear about them, okay, yeah, Parikshit Maharaj, Shukadeva Swami, Maitreya, Vidura, you know, Nanda Maharaj, Yasoda, you know, yeah, okay, and Haridas Thakur, and you know, you hear about all these pure devotees and examples of pure devotees, but you think, yeah, but what's that got to do with me? I'm not a pure devotee, and you know, and if I have to hear about them, but they're special. They're mentioned in Bhagavatam. They're mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Of course, they're pure devotees. But you know, why should I spend all my time hearing about pure devotees when I'm so impure and I'm never going to get purified? And I don't see myself getting any more purified by hearing about these topics. Let me hear about more important things, immediately relevant. And we can find many other important things to talk about besides pure devotional service, and we really think they're really relevant and important. But actually, if we kind of, we're all in the same boat together. I mean, who am I to speak about pure devotional service? You know, I don't feel, but it's my chance to become purified. It's my chance. But Prabhupada's given me a chance to become purified. He's given me pure devotional service. He didn't compromise. Prabhupada's given me a chance. Why shouldn't I speak about pure devotional service? He didn't speak about anything except pure devotional service. He didn't compromise. And he asked his followers to do that too. Why should I lose the chance? That doesn't mean I'm pure, holier than thou. I get a chance to become purified by speaking about it. And it's all there in Bhagavatam. It's all there. So if we hear about it, if we glorify in response, if we meditate on it, if we faithfully and respectfully accept that it exists, and then if we see somebody who has the capacity to do something very nicely with a service attitude of wanting to please the Vaishnavas and please the devotees, why not praise it? Praise the service of others. Lord Chaitanya personally gave in his instructions to, who was it that came to him in Kulia? You know, after Gopal Chapala came to him, then somebody else came to him and said, previously, I didn't recognize pure Vaishnavas. He said, previously, I didn't even recognize, I saw you and I didn't recognize. I said many things about Vaishnavas that I shouldn't have said. Now, how do I rectify myself from what I did? Because you saw Lord Chaitanya, you realize now you've seen Lord Chaitanya from a different perspective. And Lord Chaitanya said, well, just like a person when he drinks poison, he can counteract the effects of poisonous by drinking the nectar of immortality. He says, so similarly, he said, for a person who has maybe previously spoken about Vaishnavas did unknowingly, because there was two principles Lord Chaitanya taught, unknowingly and knowingly. For Gopal Chapala, it was a different response. When Gopal Chapala came to Lord Chaitanya, and he was suffering with leprosy, and Gopal Chapala came to Lord Chaitanya, in that same place, he said, please, deliver me. And Lord Chaitanya looked at Gopal Chapala and said, no, I won't do that. And he said, but I'm suffering so much. And then Lord Chaitanya said, you think you're suffering now? This is only introduction to the suffering you're going to get in Kumbhipaka. And then he asked, please be merciful. And then Lord Chaitanya said, let you suffer this way for 10 million births. This was his response. For those who intentionally, willingly, this was a response, because as we know, Gopal Chapal had offended Srivas Thakur. And then, of course, we know that he had to go back to Srivas Thakur and to be forgiven, because the devotees are always merciful. So many examples we have in the Bhagavata of devotees who are, that one has to go back. Oftentimes, I like to use the story, the pastime of Maharaj Ambarish, and Durvasa Muni. And when Durvasa Muni went back to Lord Vishnu, and Durvasa Muni asked Lord Vishnu, please, after going to Lord Brahma for help, Lord Brahma said, I can't help you. He went to Shiva, Shiva said, I can't help you. Then he went to Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu said, no, I can't help you either. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his commentary, he actually creates a dialogue between Durvasa Muni and Lord Vishnu, and he explains what's taking place, that why is Lord Vishnu telling Durvasa Muni that I can't do anything. And Lord Vishnu said, he said that the devotee is in my heart, I'm always in the heart of my devotee, the devotee doesn't think of anyone but me, I don't think of anyone but him. And he also told Durvasa Muni, he said, I'm not at all independent from my devotee. And he explains why he couldn't revoke the Sudarshan Chakra, because he was completely dependent upon his devotee. And Durvasa Muni was trying to inquire, how is it possible that you're the Lord, and if I'm coming to you for shelter, certainly, you must feel compassion for somebody. If I can't go to you for shelter, who can I go to? Durvasa Muni essentially was saying, like, look at me, can't you think of my suffering? And where's your heart? and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that in the relationship between the Lord and his devotees, he says the devotee always takes me into his heart, and he serves me very, very carefully. And because I'm a person, I always want to give something in return to my devotee. But every time I ask my devotee, what can I give him in return? My devotee always says, I don't want anything, I just want to serve you. And then he said, but I want to reciprocate. My devotee is serving me so nicely in his heart. And I ask him for something, he doesn't want anything from me. So therefore, his explanation to Durvasa Muni is, he says, you're coming to me and you're asking me to have a heart. And therefore I'm telling you that the only thing I found I could give to my devotee, Maharaj Ambarish, that was of only value to him, everything else I would offer him, he wasn't interested. So I reached into my treasure house and I gave him that which was of the greatest value. I gave him my heart. So you're asking me to have a heart, but I don't have a heart. And you're asking to think about your suffering. But I gave him my mind too, because I only think of him. So if you want to become relieved from, and if you want my heart and my mind, you got to go to Maharaj Ambarish. He's got it. So Lord Chaitanya set the same principle with Gopal Chapala, he says, no, for those who knowingly did such an offense, they have to go to the devotee. But we're speaking about those who unknowingly. And that's what the Brahmin, the Kuli, he came to the Lord Chaitanya, said, what to do for those who unknowingly. Previously I said something, but I didn't know the devotees' true glories. And Lord Chaitanya said that, he said that just like a person drinks poison, then he can counteract the effects of the poison by drinking the nectar of immortality. So similarly, he says, with the same tongue that you've used to speak about devotees in an inappropriate way, you can still use the same tongue and praise the devotees. Look for opportunities to praise the devotees for their service. Recognize what devotees are doing, and if we see somebody rendering some service and with a genuine desire to please the Vaishnavas, to please Srila Prabhupada, to please the Lord, then why not praise it? And this will counteract the effects. So, in this verse that we've quoted, that pure devotional service is so transcendently potent, that if we hear, repeat, meditate on, we faithfully and respectfully accept that it exists. And if we praise the service of others, I'm sorry, something's caught on my throat. It's nothing. Something from breakfast. Is there? Oh, there is one. Even a person who hates the demigods and all living beings in the universe can be purified. That's how wonderful. I mean, these festivals are supposed to be. They're supposed to be opportunities to come, to hear, to get inspired, and to be reminded of why Srila Prabhupada established this International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says why we should have festivals for association, to hear. But what the result of the hearing should be? Well, he says we conduct festivals to give to everyone the opportunity associated with devotees, to destroy their attachment for material life, to display compassion for all living entities, to develop a taste for chanting the holy name, and to engage in the service of Hari, Guru, and Vaishnavas. If we actually try to keep this as the focus of the festivals, the result is that people will feel nourished. They'll feel nourished. And when you feel nourished, you want to reciprocate. Thank you for nourish. Thank you for the nourish. What can I do to reciprocate for this nourishment? Something everybody's hankering to be nourished. So why not have a festival and nourish? Everybody needs pushti, tushti, right? That wonderful verse in the Bhagavatam, 11th canto. Bhakti pareshana bhava virakti angaita chaishatrika ekakala. The devotion, direct experience of the Lord, and detachment from material things. These three things come simultaneously and increasingly for a person engaged in devotional service. Just as pleasure, nourishment, relief from hunger comes simultaneously and increasingly with each bite for a person who's eating. Everybody needs pushti, tushti, satisfaction, right? Nourishment. And the example is being given that just when a person is eating, he doesn't have to ask anybody else, is my hunger going away? Eating, everybody has, I think most people have an experience of what it's like to eat, right? It's, when you eat, you know when the food tastes good. You don't have to ask somebody, does it taste good? No, you know. When your hunger goes away, you don't have to ask somebody else, is my hunger going to go away? You know. And if you're hungry and when you eat and you're feeling some strength, You know. Pushti, tushti. Same thing happens when you engage in devotional service, then you know. What is the result? Bhakti Parashana Bhava Virakti. Bhakti Parashana Bhava Viraktiya. He says that devotion, direct experience of Krishna, and detachment from material things, they come. Your devotion increases. You feel more devoted. You begin to experience Krishna's participation in your life more. You begin to say, wow, you can begin to accept whatever condition Krishna put you in is Krishna's arrangement. I mean, how many times, how many examples are there in the Bhagavatam of devotees who had to accept situations that they were put in and see it as, see Krishna present. I often use the example of Parikshit Maharaj. You know, Parikshit Maharaj is I quote one verse I like. Tiraskrita vipralabda kshatakshitaha tahapi asya tat patikurvanti tad bhaktakavayopihi. This verse states that devotees of the Lord are so forbearing that even if they're cheated, neglected, disturbed, cursed, insulted, or even killed, they're never inclined to avenge themselves. That was Parikshit Maharaj. That was spoken about Parikshit Maharaj. Spoken by Shamak Rishi. Shamak Rishi wanted Parikshit Maharaj to punish his son. Wanted to punish him. What has he done to such a devotee as Parikshit Maharaj? The best way my son Shringi could be punished is if Parikshit Maharaj will counter-curse him. And then he thought, no, Parikshit Maharaj will never counter-curse him. He's a devotee. What hope do I have for my son? He won't be, Parikshit Maharaj will never counter-curse him. And he quoted this verse. Why? Because devotees of the Lord are so forbearing that even if they're cheated, cursed, neglected, disturbed, insulted, or even killed, that's a devotee. How can devotees be that way, so forbearing? To see Krishna in everything. So as one advances, feels his devotion increases, he experiences Krishna's presence more in his life. And he doesn't have to ask somebody, just like a person who's eating doesn't have to ask somebody, is my hunger going away? Same way, you don't have to ask somebody, am I becoming detached? You know. This is the symptom of being engaged in devotional service, you know. So, festivals are meant to help us achieve that. Give us nourishment, destroy our attachments. I mean, I didn't come here with the intention, I'm not to destroy anybody's attachment to material life. Believe me, I'm the one who's probably most attached to material life. But I have hope that by talking about these things, I can become purified. That's my hope. It's my saving grace. Prabhupada spoke this way. Prabhupada, everything he said was fully potent because it's pure. And purity comes through, obviously. When Prabhupada speaks, you feel his purity. You feel his compassion, you feel his care, you feel his pushing. Everything is there. But somehow, Prabhupada wants us to do the same. He wants us to speak about these ever-fresh topics in a way that make them relevant. That pure devotional service isn't for just a few unique individuals who are mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. It's freely accessible to everyone if they simply develop the desire, eagerness to hear about it. That's what Lord Chaitanya came to give. In fact, there's a verse, Kaviraj Goswami glorifies Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He says, glorifies Lord Chaitanya, he says that He was an ocean of transcendental mercy, and although the subject of bhakti is very difficult to understand, he's made it so very easily accessible to everyone in this age of Kali. So in the same way, Srila Prabhupada has made bhakti so easily accessible. And the best way to make it accessible is the way Prabhupada made it accessible. Best way to make it accessible is not only by speaking about it, but the best way to make it accessible is living according to what one speaks. And we had that advantage in Srila Prabhupada. That Prabhupada walked his talk. Prabhupada could speak about such transcendental subject matters, and then when you see his example, it's inspiring. We can tell so many stories, and I'm sure Sureshwar Prabhu will include them in his presentation of Prabhupada's purity and how he inspired by his purity to become pure. So such festivals are meant to help us to become pure. And becoming pure means become free from material attachments. There's no other way to become pure unless we become free from material attachments. And we become pure by developing some taste and by engaging in service in Vaishnavas. This is our opportunity to render some service to those who are coming to hear, who have a sincere desire to hear, and for those who are coming to speak. And if we remember these things, then we can observe many wonderful things happen. And you can get the same advantage to observe as I observed. Wonderful things happen if we just simply remember what festivals are for. And I hope I was able to convince you that I'm not the father of the Bhakti Sangam Festival. That it's all happened because of so many wonderful Vaishnavas who come to our festivals every year. They don't ask for any money for their tickets. They come because they have enthusiastic people who want to come and hear. And they come and speak very wonderfully. And they make the festival what it is. And I just get another chance to watch Krishna reciprocating and get caught in the crossfire. Same thing can happen here. Doesn't take much, just desire. And it's 5 minutes if anybody has any questions. Suresh.
All right, unfortunately, you convinced me of just the opposite, that you actually did inspire. Then you were the inspirational catalyst behind the whole thing. So I still think you're the father of Bhakti Sangam. I'm sorry.
But if you go there, you know better.
I did go there.
Oh, that's right. But anyways, I can think.
Anyway, you were the father by inspiration. Maybe you knew everything, but you were the seed-giving father. You gave the inspiration.
I just asked them to please make sure that nobody has to come, that nobody is refused to go to Mangalarti. That's all I did. They took care of the rest. They took care of the rest. They found ways of doing it. You know, this, they took it up. You know, I can't even tell you how things evolved. I didn't take part. They just took it up. Kept the spirit alive. Kept the spirit alive. Isn't that what we do?
This food
Yeah.
It is said that one get the association according to one's qualification for association.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds to me like this extremely rare term mentioned Bhakti Mukhi Sukriti.
Bhakti Mukhi Sukriti, yeah.
It's actually mentioned only once in Vedas in Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Yeah, Prabhupada mentions a commentary on Chaitanya Charitamrita, quotes Bhakti Vinod Thakur.
It seems for me that everything based on this, all the techniques
Everything is placed on what now?
based on this
Bhakti-mukhi Sukriti? Well, Bhakti-mukhi Sukriti means that, yes, as a result of one's Sukriti, one gets to associate with Bhakta. And it becomes qualified. But as a result of association, then what happens is one gets genuine association. It's meant to increase the desire. Because association means to increase the desire for Bhakti. So when you increase the desire for Bhakti, then you begin to perceive its presence in many places. Because wherever Bhakti is present, to whatever degree it is, our inspiration is to look for it wherever it may be manifest. And one doesn't have to be on a very elevated platform to see that there's Bhakti, although there may be some other things there and others. But actually, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Saja Kapal Noisha Nani Sujiteji Kori Nudoi. Pure love for Krishna's eternal situation of every living being doesn't come from any other source. And if we hear, they will naturally awaken. So the result is we begin to perceive the presence of Bhakti even in the hearts of those who may not be completely pure. There's some Bhakti there, and we can see it, we can appreciate it, and we can hear and glorify, speak about it. Catalyst may be there by hearing from maybe some rare soul from reading Srila Prabhupada's books. That's the fountainhead of all of our Bhakti. That's been my 50th. So you know, my 50th vow was to convince people that we really have to spend more time reading Prabhupada's books, because I see there's a tendency, many devotees are really clueless about what Prabhupada gave in his books. My 50th vow is to remind devotees, it's all there, Prabhupada's books. And, but anyways, if we get that opportunity to hear, then it will, and nourish it, we'll begin to perceive its presence in other places too. And then the more we become eager for it, and Krishna knows how eager we are for it, because he's in our heart, the more he knows how eager for it, then that gives us the qualification to get what we're looking for. The more we're eager for it. That's, Prabhupada says, Bhakti is dependent on nothing more than simply desire. And the Upadeshamrita, like Prabhupada explains very clearly, that Bhakti is cultivation of desire. And then Krishna says this also in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Atachatam Samadhatu Nashiknosi Mahastiram Abhyasi Gurina Tato Mamichatu Dhananjaya. He tells Arjuna, if you can't always think of me, then follow the regular principles of Bhakti Yoga, this way cultivate the desire to attain me. And what Krishna is saying is that follow the regular principles doesn't mean intoxication. Okay, Krishna's not telling Arjuna to follow the 4 regular principles. He's telling him to regulate their lives around such topics. Regulate their life around hearing about Bhakti. In fact, I oftentimes quote Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in one commentary, Smartavyam satatam Vishnoa vismartavyam najantuchit savamidhi nisevishya itiyo eva kinkara. That Krishna must always be remembered, and Krishna must never be forgotten. All the rules and all the prohibitions given in the scriptures are meant to serve these 2 principles. And there's an explanation of this verse, that generally the word satatam means always. And but in this verse we see that the verse is speaking about vidhis and nishedas. Vidhis means prescribed positive activities, prescribed activities. Vidhis are to do those things that help you to remember Krishna. So there are certain vidhis that are conducive for remembering Krishna. And then the Nishedas are those things that you have to avoid. And just like we'll take initiation, we'll make a vow, chant 16 rounds every day, and to help us remember Krishna. And then there are things we avoid. No meat, fish, intoxication, listen, sex, gambling. So these are the Nishedas. So in the commentary to this verse, this explained that in this verse, the word satatam couldn't mean always remember Krishna. Because if somebody always remembers Krishna, then why does he have to worry about forgetting Krishna? Right? Just like if a person is always speaking about Krishna, does he have to always worry about, I better be careful, I better not say something that's not connected to Krishna? Don't have to think about things to avoid because he's always speaking about Krishna. So therefore he says this verse couldn't mean always, because if one's always remembering Krishna, then he'll never forget Krishna. But yet the verse says, don't forget Krishna. So because the verse is speaking about both the Vidis and the Nishedas, both, instead of the meaning always in this verse, the word satatam means every day. That's how we understand every day. Every day, we have to associate with Krishna. We have to hear, be in the association of others who are speaking about Him, who are glorifying Him, speaking about pure. And wherever somebody is speaking about Him, then who quoted the verse this morning? Naham tishtami vakuti yoginam vidiyeshu tatsat tishtarina Narada yatsvagayanti madbhakta. See, he told Narada, I'm not the Vaikuntha planets, nor am I in the hearts of yogis, but wherever my devotees are talking about me, I'm sitting right there. That's where I am. That's where you'll find me. So, purification is there wherever devotees are eager to hear and chant about Krishna. And we simply develop the desire to try to become focused on hearing and chanting those topics which are related to pure devotional service, then we'll see that there's so much bhakti, so much bhakti, opportunities for bhakti and sukriti. We just simply have to open our eyes and become eager to associate with Krishna in whatever form he manifests himself in the association of his devotees. And when the devotees are very eager and united, Prabhupada speaks about in the Bhagavatam, just like when the Prachetas were very united in their purpose, they were all eager to satisfy the Lord, and because they were united, to do something, perform a sacrifice for His pleasure, then the Lord was very much inclined to bestow a benediction for the united service. So if everybody is united with the interest to let's make Srimad Bhagavatam an opportunity to glorify pure devotional service and nothing else, I think it's a pretty powerful purification that will come from that united effort to keep everything in focus. Srimad Bhagavatam should not be a soapbox for anything in pure devotional service. That's why Lord Chaitanya chastised Devananda Pandit, because he used Srimad Bhagavatam as a soapbox for something besides pure devotional service. And Devananda Pandit was so heavily chastised that Lord Chaitanya came back and told him, he said, and Devananda Pandit realized, I committed great offense. What should I do? Lord Chaitanya says, Srimad Bhagavatam, beginning, middle, end. Nothing but pure devotional service. You should never speak again on any other topic from Srimad Bhagavatam except pure devotional service. That was his chastisement. So we should not use Srimad Bhagavatam as a soapbox for some other message. And then when devotees are so enthused and enlivened, yeah, let's hear about Krishna. Desire grows. Sukriti. One becomes eager. And Krishna says that this way, cultivate the desire to attain me. This is how to cultivate the desire to attain me. I'm sorry, I think I went on a little bit more than that you were inquiring about. Huh? Less? No. I think I have to stop here according to the schedule. And thank you for allowing me to sit here and render some service.